we're going to have a little look at my menu setup and a couple of little ways that I use the dials when I'm out and about shooting, especially travel stuff. So here we go. These are my JPEG settings, so RAW is obviously a little bit different. Image size, large 3:2, use the full sensor. Image quality, fine, get the best out of it. RAW recording, irrelevant, but I'll use compressed when I use RAW. And then obviously these two will be open too. Grain effect off, color chrome effect off, white balance auto, dynamic range auto. I know there's a few that think otherwise. D-range priority off, highlight tone -1. I might actually play with this D-range priority a little bit more and see how I fare, but I'm preferring it off right now. Highlight tone -1, shadow tone 0, color +2, sharpness +2, noise reduction -3. Now there's another one there. I might play with it. There's not too much in it. I just like to keep it as low down as possible. So yeah, I probably should go 4, but I've been stuck in 3 for a while. Don't get too bogged down with the nitty-gritty settings. If you need to, just do some very static tests and see if you can notice the difference between the two, but don't panic too much. Long exposure noise reduction on, lens modulation optimizer on, color space, sRGB, pixel mapping, that's something we don't need to look at right now. Custom setting, I'm not messing with custom settings at the moment. Focus area, well, you know, when you do that, you can select any point there is. If you get a little bit lost, just press the joystick in and it will get you there. If you're in this mode too, you can make the focus point bigger and smaller. The bigger it is, allegedly, the quicker it focuses, but you might need some more precise focusing. You might be happy with a midpoint right about there, but there we go. Let's go back to AF mode. I'm a fan of single point unless I'm doing some of the other bits and pieces like the continuous tracking, but I'm still a bit old school with the single point. I like to control where it is, and of course with the touchscreen I can select my autofocus point ad hoc. AFC, I'm still just using one. Store AF mode off. AF point display, I want to see it. I'm currently using all the 425 points. Why not? No biggie there. Pre-AF off. Illuminator off. I don't want people being alerted in a dark environment. Face detection setting. Now I am using eye auto on. I'm happy with that. I really enjoy that setting. AF MF on. When I use a manual lens or decide to go finer and use the MF as it is, I like to use peak. Now I use a white high at the moment, but I'm messing about with this yellow high to see how I feel about that. So it's a nice little addition there. Let's flick back here. Focus check on, interlock spot on, instant AF setting, AFS, depth of field scale, pixel. I'm not too worried about that. My release, focus priority, both modes are on release. Touchscreen, well, I tend to do that via the actual touchscreen itself. Up in the top corner you can do that. Drive setting, this is where it might get interesting for you. Now I select the bracket one as a film simulation bracket, and if we go down here you can see I've got ProNeg high-end, Astia and Acros plus R filter right there. That's my preference. I have actually started messing around with a second bracket setting, which again is film simulation bracket. The only difference is I've put a Turner in there. I know it's not a lot of difference, but just when I fancy it. Continuous high speed burst is at 8. You do have other options, of course. 1.25 crops at right up to 30, but I'm happy with 8. My low, I want as low as possible. Oop, I flicked that one across there. Sports Finder mode is on. Just, I'm not really messing with that too much. These two are off. Self timer, if I want a self timer, I'll go quick menu, go down to the quick menu with the touch screen. and I'll select the relevant one, which I have done with this, and it works fine as you'd expect. Interval timer shooting, I haven't really messed with this because I prefer an output file, but it's there and it's very flexible. Shutter type mechanical and electronic. Flicker reduction on. IS mode for the lens that I've currently got attached, that's very good. For the other one that I was using traveling around as well, I'll leave that in continuous there. Actually, I think continuous and motion might be worth checking out, so let's flick that over. Auto ISO. So my auto ISO all seems to have reset itself bizarrely, so I'll use the default sensitivity of 1/60th, and I have been playing right up to 12/800. Minimum shutter speed, you can go auto, let's put it in 1/60th, but I will check the others, so I might have a lower sensitivity in that one, just in case I'm shooting on a tripod, a long scene. Mount adapter setting, this is only relevant when I'm using one of my vintage lenses. I haven't actually done that with this body yet. And flash function, that'll be set to a TTL if and when, but with this body I'm not using flash so much at all. But if you want, check out my bounce flash video and see how I would set it up for that. Now movie mode, wondering why this is greyed out at the moment. It's greyed out because there's your slow motion. So I like the 5x 120p. Let's turn that off and you'll see the movie mode's open there. And then I've been shooting at 1080 and I've been flicking between 59.94 and 23.98. I like to use the highest MPBS because that helps me if I really want to slow footage down. You don't need the highest frame rate to slow stuff down, but it is always better. And of course the 4K modes are there too. I think I've just put a slow card in there, so that is not lighting up right now, but once we flick that to a faster card, we're good to go. Film simulation, I just keep it simple with a ProNeg high, and you can see right here my settings, very similar to my JPEG settings. Not currently recording F-Log with this, but it's possible. My movie mode area, focus area, as and when. I do have it flicking to AFC, tracking sensitivity 2, face detection I have on also, and then you'll see my other options down there. I'm not really messing with the outputs at the moment, although right at this moment I'm outputting to my little gadget so you can see the back of the screen other than just me pointing a camera at it, although that might be a sharper option frankly. Zebra settings currently off, but that's a pretty cool option, so I might start implementing that at some point. Audio settings are in there. I keep the external mic level down quite a bit when I use it. Now, user settings, this is stuff that pretty much you don't really need to go through with me. Sensor cleaning, I prefer it when switched off. I don't want it affecting my speed of shooting when switching on. Now, sound and flash is set to on purely so I can use the flash. Here you'll see my AF beeps are off. The only sound that I have on is the self timer beeps. The rest I want off. I don't want any noise, any alert, any beeping. That's how it is. Now, screen settings, I haven't really messed with this, to be fair. If you need to, pause and have a look at that. And that runs the same for the others as well. I've got everything pretty much set to standard. Button and dial setting, my focus lever, or the joystick as we call it, is currently set to on. Edit save, quick menu is there. Function settings, you can see on the top I've got a Wi-Fi, I've got a touch function when it's on, of drive, face detect, and a very handy little spirit level, for want of a much better phrase, horizon. And then you can select the face detection with that when I've got them on. These I haven't changed, and that's that. Command dial, my little fun favourite. We've got it in my favourite method is this exposure compensator, and then the ISO thing, I think we're going to just turn that off because that's been annoying me a little bit. Right, cool. some of these have been changed from how I usually shoot them just because I've been playing around with it somewhat. Shutter AF as is there. Shoot without lenses off for when I use my vintage lenses. Shoot without card is off for when I attach this via HDMI to an external device. Focus ring clockwise. Take a look at those if you need to. Not a lot that really needs to be said. I haven't really messed with them too much. I'm happy with that. My auto power off is off. My performance is always on boost. Find a battery level very decent, and I'm used to carrying batteries or a USB pack. Connection settings, I forgot to mention this in the review actually, but it's very decent when it comes to using the app. I've got it set up, which was super easy, and as soon as I turn this on, turn the app on, select the body, it'll connect. It'll ask me on the phone if I want to connect, and I'm away. No more going into Wi-Fi via a quick button and doing it that way. It's all set up and it works nice, and for updates too. And there you go. That's the screen. Let's take a little look at the dial situation. These are my go-to settings for travel shooting. Bracket 1 is there. We're on auto for the shutter speed there, so I'm controlling the aperture by the ring there. My exposure compensator is set to C, so I can access the full range via the dial there. So instead of minus and plus 3, I can go minus and plus 5, and I'm good to go. That's not a problem. When I want to shoot video, I can just flick there and then go into the relevant shutter speed. So let's just say, for argument's sake, I'm shooting at 30 frames per second, 60th from shooting at 59.94, my closest 125, and we're good to go. So it's just a case of flicking back there, and obviously there's my bracket 2 and my CH. That's pretty much what I'm rocking between most of the time. If I'm using this on a professional shoot and I'm shooting RAW, I'm probably going to be in single there, and then aperture priority mode. And of course, if I'm shooting manual, I'll set the ISO in the quick menu, and I'll set my shutter speed to a relevant shutter speed and the aperture that way, and I'm away again. But for all intents and purposes, traveling around, as you saw in the in inverted commas review, that was the setup, although clearly I took a different lens, but I do really recommend this lens. That's just how I've got the C30 set up, and a few little tips, if you can call them that, how I shoot with it and how I'm able to be productive even when I use this on a professional gig. But for me, I love it for traveling. Let us know if you've any tips in the comments below, any little tweaks and preferences and personalizations, and maybe some of the more advanced features, how you've got it set up, and if there's any quick methods that we haven't mentioned, mention them below. It's all about sharing. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and take it easy.